guys, gals, and MBs. I'm here today with the Oberheim OB6 from Sequential, or slash Sequential and Oberheim together with this thing, and it is absolutely fantastic. First things first, I bought this with my own money, and no, it isn't better than the Trigon 6 in my opinion. It's at the same level as the Trigon 6. I finally have another analog synth that is at the same level. These live up in my top favorite synths, so the OB6, the Trigon, and the Peak, all very different synths. They're all at the same level. I can't recommend one over another unless you have a really specific use case where one will fit over the others. I think they're all absolutely fantastic. That said, I watched a Miles Away video a while ago on the OB6, and it really put me on the fence. Do I want to get a Trigon 6 first, or do I want to get an OB6, or even the OBX8, I think it is? And yeah, so I got the Trigon first, which not regretting it. Fantastic synth. OB6, got it out of the box, didn't regret it at all. Same thing went for the Peak when I originally got that, and the Take 5 as well. So these are just synths I've never regretted buying, and I'll demo a little bit about that. And I love the Oberheim sound, and you'll be surprised why I like the Oberheim sound. So the biggest thing is I do a lot of ambient and video game music. If you go through my channel and look at that stuff, you'd be surprised that I'm actually a big Rush fan. And obviously in Tom Sawyer, an OBXA was used. So yeah, there's that. And that it's just such a good thing. The only sad part about that is I don't think I can do the awesome filter sweep on this thing because I will get a copyright strike. So yeah, screw the copyright system. But yeah, that's just the reality of it. But we'll go over that, without doing that, we'll go over why I like this so much. And this thing can do mellow sounds like no other. The Trigon excels at doing very lush, very broad sounds. The Peak excels at doing a lot of, I would say it doesn't do harsh very well, but it can. But it can do extremely moving, like pads, like where you have a lot of movement and a lot of modulation. And the OB6 just does this mellow thing that just sounds really good, and it can do this lush and mellow thing together. And we'll get into a patch that I just threw together that, yeah, I really just, it sounds really cool. Anyway, yeah, I'll stop talking about that stuff and we'll get into this. So yeah, it kind of works like the Trigon 6. So if we do manual and right, we get an init patch. And I had to wake up my launch pad here. A lot of people ask about my launch pad, so yeah, I get so many questions about this. So this is a Launchpad Pro Mark III, and it has MIDI out over TRS. It comes with adapters in the box. It just uses standard USB-C to power it. I'm using an Apple wall wart from an old iPad. The reason I use the iPad ones, they're fantastically designed little power supplies. They don't introduce any noise into things. If you get some of the cheaper power supplies out there, it comes with a power supply that works as well, and it's pretty quiet. But yeah, a lot of cheap power supplies are very noisy, and this should have opto isolate. Both of these should be opto isolated, so it shouldn't put noise over MIDI. But that said, you never know. So I just, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So this is our init patch. Not that exciting, but it's very bright, if you can hear that. With the filter wide open, that is, I think, one of the classics of an Oberheim synth. The oscillators are just very bright. And yeah, so we have two of them, plus a sub per voice. And I just recently tuned this. And yeah, I shouldn't say that they're that boring by themselves, but they're bright and they're just airy and they're lovely. So yeah. So I'm not going to say they're boring. And then we have a lovely sub oscillator. And there are some differences between both oscillators. On Oscillator 2, we can sweep smoothly between a triangle. Are we still? Oh, we have the sub up. I'm like, why do I hear a square? So we go from a triangle to a saw to a square, and the square has pulse width and pulse width modulation on it. So yeah, really cool. And then Oscillator 1, it's basically just a a sawtooth and a square with, again, pulse width on the square. All right, so for a little lovely patch we're going to start out with, we're going to use a two sawtooths. So we're going to go here. We're going to use sawtooth on both. We're going to do one of my favorite things ever, and that is to tune the second oscillator to a perfect fifth. And as you can see here, it's a smooth knob for the octave changes and everything, but at least we get a indication of what it's tuned to. So, whoops, let's go back down. Whoops, up to G3. So that's like the root. So second oscillator is now perfect, fifth above the first oscillator, and we're gonna add the sub oscillator in as well. But listen to this. Listen to how just punchy this is. God, I really want to let you listen to the filter sweep with high resonance on this. So one thing I will say, we'll just do that really. Yeah, so yeah, we're not going to go too much into it, but if the resonance is up, it doesn't bring down the bass, and this doesn't self-oscillate, so it just doesn't. So yeah, if I take down all of the oscillators, for instance, we can do that really quick. See, we don't get any self-oscillation. All right, we're going to bring up the oscillators, which if you bring them all the way up, it really drives the filter, and that's one of the lovely things about it. We're going to turn down resonance all the way, and we're going to take the filter all the way down, and then we're going to use the filter envelope. And to do that, we need to go ahead and increase the filter envelope here. We're going to also increase the release on the amp envelope. You can hear the clicking. You can hear a little bit of bleed from the filter because lower notes will still get through. But yeah, maybe that won't come over YouTube or be able to be heard by compression and things like that. But yeah, we're going to add some decay now. And release. Let's add a little less to the filter. Yeah, that's just so it's I don't know how to put it. It's lovely. It has a little bit of a mellow charm to it. Like it doesn't get super harsh, but it's also still kind of aggressive sounding at the same time. It's just like we're getting a little bit of tuning issues. So the one thing you're going to have to do a lot with these synths is when you first get them and you're in an unstable environment like I am, you're going to have to tune them a few times. Otherwise, they will not stay stable. Once you get enough tuning data into them, I'll do the tuning now while I talk about it. So you need to get a tuning table built up of your environment. Otherwise, it will drift. And if you get enough tuning information in it, the theory is behind it is it should stay stable. My Trigon, after quite a few attempts, is staying stable across the temperature board. So that's really nice to know. Just be aware that you want to do that. And it's pretty quick. It might hang on a few times while it's trying to really calculate, but then it's done. Let's hear. Oh no, we went back to now you heard what it was going to sound like. Oh no. So yeah, the unfortunate thing you have to know is if you do a tuning like in the middle of something, it'll go back to what the patch was and not what you were working on. So I just lost everything there. Not a big deal. We'll go back. So let's go back. Let's just, because the knob positions are where I need them. Fantastic. Let's bring down the filter. Let's bring back up this. We're going to bring in some release on both sides. less on the filter envelope. Cool, so that sounds pretty good. And now let's kick it up, and what we're going to do is we're going to use one of my favorite functions on the OB6, the Take 5. It's hidden in menu in the Take 5, unfortunately, and the Trigon, and maybe there's a Prophet in my future, Prophet 6 maybe, but that should have it as well, and that's pan spread. We're going to turn pan spread to the middle, and now if you're listening to this on stereo, which I hope you are, bring down the octave there. Oh man, and we're not using any effects. We're literally just using, I think it's just a stereo pan VCA on this thing. The processor in this thing is just, it's telling the VCA where to pan based on where the pan spread is. But damn, does that's so punchy. And like I said, it's mellow and punchy at the same time. It's the weirdest thing to describe. It's that bright oscillator going through an overdriven filter. It's not really super overdriven, but it's being really saturated by just, cranking everything up here. All right, let's add a little movement to it. And one thing that I'm going to say that I absolutely love about this and the Trigon, and this is one leg up that the Peak has, except for the one caveat to that. So the Peak has a lot of menu diving if you want to use a lot of its modulation functionality. It's pretty easy to use. It has a very logically laid out menu, but the OB6 and the Trigon, there's not that many hidden functions. This one, there's a hidden analog distortion in here. It's advertised obviously, but it's not a face knob. It really should be because the distortion sounds pretty good. We'll listen to that a little later. But yeah, everything is just out on the front. So if I just want to go ahead and take the LFO, I know we technically have two LFOs. If you really want to take it into account, we can use the X mod, which is like the Oberheim equivalent to Polymod on a Prophet. But yeah, we lose an oscillator if we do that. Well, I guess we could use the filter envelope as well, but yeah, we lose something doing that. Anyway, back to this. We're going to, it's easy. So I want to use the LFO to control VCO 1 and 2's pitch. So I have 1 and 2 turned on. No menu diving. It was absolutely fantastic. We want to turn the amount pretty low, so we don't want to get like super bad. Turn down the frequency a little. We have a little bit of subtle movement. All right. And yeah, just by that itself, geez, doesn't that sound great? You can tell that I'm super excited with playing with this synth. It's just so easy to get sounds out of it. It's easy to get sounds out of any synth. I should say good sounds. It's easy to get sounds out of like an Kaya, the Timberwolf, but they're not going to be good sounds, obviously. But yeah. All right, so let's go to I generally, that I'm an effects snob. I'm gonna admit it. The Peak has the best effects of any synth out there, but this has some really good built-in effects. The chorus is a standout, and the Bucket Brigade delay, which is also stereo. So if we've introduced pan spread here, it'll be stereo. So we're gonna add a chorus, and we're gonna add that Bucket Brigade delay. So yeah. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn off the hall reverb on the second part so we can just hear the chorus by itself. All right, this is going to be a really bad sounding because by default, for whatever reason, the first effect defaults to 100 on both settings. Oh, we got to turn it on. Oof, terrible. But let's turn it to about 64 on both. Also, one thing I should note is the encoders on this thing and all the potentiometers are just lovely feeling. There we go. Maybe a little too much. There we go. God, that yeah, doesn't that sound amazing? That chorus is really good. It's a very lovely, lush stereo chorus. So let's add a Bucket Brigade style delay. All right, we added that in. That just sounds just so lush and amazing. I just, yeah, not much more to say about how fantastic that is, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not going to save that. We'll go back to how I did it here. This one's a little better. Guess I have a little more release on that one. That just, yeah, I adore that. All right, so one of the other things that I want to go over that's really unique on this compared to the Prophet 6 and the Trigon again is, let's make an init patch here, is we have a continuously variable filter shape. So we can go from low pass to high pass. And one of the cool things is the LFO can modulate that. So let's do that. This will be the offset point. Yeah, so that's very unique. Also has a bandpass function too. So let's go ahead and just clear that out. It's just so easy to clear stuff out, which is dangerous if you're working on something. But yeah, so let's go back to here. Let's do the bandpass. And this does nothing in bandpass mode, obviously. I don't think it does. No, it doesn't. All right. So usually I'm not a big stickler for factory patches, but patch 7 was just amazing on this. I needed to make some changes to it. We're going to go to the default patch 7 on here, and we're going to make the changes that I made to it to make it sounded even better. And it is just such a lovely patch. So here, this is the default patch 7. so let's make the changes. The first change we're going to do is we're going to change the effects up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and turn off the room reverb, which I just don't like the reverbs on this. It's exactly like the Trigon. The reverbs are not great. That's being charitable. All right. So the room reverb is off, and we're going to change the length of the Bucket Brigade style delay. Or I should say the feedback. And we're going to change the mix a little too. All right, and one thing that we're going to notice on this patch that's really interesting is because of how the Xmod is working. If we hold down a note, it changes the octave. I'll even turn off the delay so you can hear that. We hear some noise in there. It's just a lovely. I didn't think that this synth had this sound in it, but here we are. All right, so let's go back and tweak some of the settings and make this something a little more usable, in my opinion. The long delay sound on this was just too much. Or feedback, I should say. Long delays aren't the problem, it's too much feedback. Okay, so now the other thing we're going to add is one of my favorites, and that is pan spread. That's just amazing. So yeah, there's that mellowness that I was talking about. You can kind of get there with the Trigon, but the Trigon, I feel, is like for those bold, huge pads, and it just does that so well. But yeah, absolutely lovely. Just sit there for hours. Actually, when I first got this synth, after changing patch 7 up to sound like this, I did actually sit there for a good hour. Which I didn't even change position. I was just sitting there. I sit on the floor to do this, as weird as that sounds, because it's just how I've been doing it for so long. This is a tabletop on the floor with a piece of fabric over it. But yeah, that said, my butt went numb because I was sitting there so long playing with this specific patch. It's just so inspiring. So I love it so much. So let's go back to the other patch really quick. But yeah, it's the one that I made. Just night and day difference. So you can hear it. It can do that. Yeah, so I don't want to talk too much more on this synth. I absolutely love it just so much. Oh yeah, the one thing we'll go into is the hidden distortion, or it's not hidden, but it's behind. It's one of the few things that's not a face value thing. So in order to do that, you hold the effect switch, and I believe it is, you hold effect here, and you see how distortion comes on, then you use mix. So here, one sec. So yeah, the Trigon has distortion as well. It's analog stereo distortion as well, but it has a dedicated knob. So that out of the way. The other thing is, so if any of you are familiar with like the modern Prophet synths, you usually, and this is the true for the Take 5 and the Trigon, there's a vintage knob. This has a vintage mode. It's run through the detune. I have it turned on as far as I know. No, I just have the detune turned on. You have to do this through a really weird way to get into a third menu to turn it on, but then your detune knob becomes it becomes a vintage knob. I'm not going to look it up right now because I don't remember the Konami code that you have to put in to make this work, but yeah, I guess. But maybe it is on right now. But yeah, either way, you can make the detune a vintage mode as well. So that's in one of the firmware updates. My unit came with 1.8, which is the latest firmware out there for it. But yeah, be aware of that. If you don't see the, like on the face, it doesn't have a vintage mode, and the literature doesn't make it sound like it has a vintage mode, but this thing has a vintage mode. And I'll explore that in videos in the future. It has a sequencer. The sequencer is really easy to use. I like it. You can play along with it. So yeah, really easy to use. Yeah, that's about it. Again, like I said with the Trigon 6 as well, it's a very easy to use synth. It's a very easy to get sounds out of it really quickly without having to menu dive. That does lend itself to being a little more simplistic on the modulation sides and things like that. And the price point is very high for something that's this simplistic. But honestly, if you're buying a sequential synth, you're not buying it for complicated modulation options, unless you're buying something like the Rev 2 or the Take 5. Or, the new Oberheim synth was actually officially announced, and it's not vaporware. It will exist. The TO5, I think that's what it was called. And don't worry, I have sold a lot of my equipment lately, and I will be looking at getting a TO5 as well. That has Through Zero FM, which is absolutely, it's just really cool. Loopop did a video on, I think it's Loopop, or is it Loopop or Loopop? Either way, I like watching their videos, and the Through Zero FM makes it a totally different synth to this and some of its functionality. The sound signatures are very much the same because they both have a SEM filter, but I don't think they would overlap too much for what I like to do, and that has a much more complex modulation matrix. So yes, I will be getting a TO5 down the line. It's not going to replace this. It's like I have a Take 5 now. I'm really honestly thinking, with everything that I've sold recently, I've sold a ton of stuff. I'm really thinking about getting a Prophet 6 and still keeping the Take 5. I just love the sequential sound at this point. That said, I do have a Wavestate Mark II. It's sitting behind me. I'll be doing a video about that soon. And don't worry, that Pro 800 video will be coming out sometime soon. Or maybe it'll just be one of those running gags on my channel where it, never actually shows up. Nah, it'll show up eventually. I'll do a video on the Pro 800. And if you want to see a video between the Pro 800 and my Take 5, since they have similar filters, then maybe we can do that. Let me know. Anyway, I've taken up way too much time. I'm almost at a half an hour here. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so if you like my kind of videos. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And yeah, let me know, do you like the OB6 as much as I did? It is an amazing sounding synth. It's pricey, but damn well worth it in my opinion. And again, the Trigon 6 is not replaced by this, and I will not be getting rid of the Trigon 6 anytime soon. Again, thanks for watching.